It's 1965. The U.S. is embroiled in the Vietnam War, and in Lawrenceburg, Tennessee, the air is thick with sweat, steel, and fury. Murray, Ohio Manufacturing Company's massive bicycle factory, 42.7 acres of American industrial muscle, is ground zero for a labor war that'll make your head spin faster than a BMX gyro. This isn't a strike. It's a bare-knuckle brawl between workers, bosses, and the law, with Tennessee state troopers, a sniper, and a dump truck full of arrested picketers thrown in for good measure. Welcome to the wildest chapter in Murray's two-wheeled history. Grab your coffee, let's dive in. Real quick, please don't skip ahead. This is not technically an ad. Well, I guess you can skip ahead if you'd like. So 2 new channels are going to be coming. I will leave them down below. One of them is it's a place to dump all of my other history stuff. Other channel that I'm going to start doing, you can go ahead and subscribe to it as well, please. It's for the bike shop that I've worked with for so long. It's called Blood, Sweat, Gears. I'll leave a link down below. That's going to kind of revert back to what I was doing initially, showcasing products, showing the bike shop, races, that kind of stuff. That's why I'm dumping that, since this is kind of turned into more of a history channel. So if you stuck with me this long, go down there, subscribe to those two, and I'll see you there. So Murray's story does start all the way back in Cleveland in 1919. They were banging out car parts, fenders, gas tanks, the usual. And by the 30s, they pivoted to bicycles and started carving out a niche for themselves as like this scrappy underdog. They were going up against the giants of like Schwinn and Columbia, but they were making affordable, utilitarian bikes for the everyman. That's their jam. So fast forward to 1956, and Murray's chasing the Sunbelt dream, opening a non-union factory in Lawrenceburg. It's a beast of a plant, cranking out bikes and lawn gear, but in 1965, the industrial powerhouse is about to blow up. Literally. Enter the Teamsters. These are the heavy hitters of organized labor, and this was the time period that they were led by none other than Jimmy Hoffa. If you don't know the history of some of these unions, like the Teamsters, let's just say they were involved in some organized crime, and Jimmy Hoffa was one of the most notorious heads. Jimmy grew the Teamsters to be one of the most powerful unions of the time through his use of what they called quickie strikes that would essentially squeeze a single company until the Teamsters got what they wanted. The Teamsters see Murray's 1,000+ workers, welders, assemblers, folks grinding out bikes like Victor, Shrek, and Ghost chrome-dipped spaceliners, and they think, union time. The plan: win an NLRB, National Labor Relations Board election to represent the workforce. The stakes: better wages, safer conditions, and a voice against management's iron fist. But Murray, they're not playing ball. The company leans hard into anti-union tactics, whispers of firings, demotions, and "you're replaceable" vibes. March 1965, the election goes down and the Teamsters lose. They start crying foul, they scream unfair labor practices, and they call for a strike. It's game on. April 1st, 1965, tons of workers walk out, picket signs high, shutting the factory down. Murray's response? They hired replacement workers. These are called scabs in union speak, to keep the assembly line humming. And for 46 days, Lawrenceburg becomes a pressure cooker. Strikers form a human wall, chanting, blocking entrances, and eyeballing the non-union crews rolling in. Murray's betting on outlasting them. The Teamsters are betting on solidarity. But this ain't a feel-good underdog story. It's about to get ugly. April 12th, the picket line turns into a battlefield. Strikers clash with cops and scabs. A non-union worker's car clips a picketer, sending them to the hospital. Another striker gets roughed up by police. 50 workers are arrested, hauled off in cuffs as Tennessee state troopers lock arms to protect the plant. A court slaps an injunction branding the pickets illegal, but the strikers don't budge. They are out here singing, "We shall overcome," channeling civil rights defiance. Murray, yes, they are back in production, but the tension's electric, literally. Think about the scene for these first, 20 days of this strike. You've got all of the state troopers from Tennessee are surrounding the building, locking arms, protecting the non-union workers as they come in, and as they leave, and all day during there. I mean, I couldn't imagine being one of these non-union workers going into this place. But the Teamsters aren't really the good guys in this situation. I'm sure they were trying to get better wages, that kind of stuff, but it's led by Jimmy Hoffa, and one of the most powder keg time periods when it comes to organized crime, especially with the unions. So I did a lot of deep diving on this subject, and I couldn't really find out what their angle really was, but things are about to blow up. April 19th, a sniper, yes, you heard that right, an actual sniper, takes a shot at an electrical transformer feeding the factory, and boom, the lights go out. Sabotage? Oh, absolutely. The plant's crippled for a day, and the message is clear. The strikers are not messing around. Murray's hemorrhaging money, but they double down, bussing in more scabs under trooper escorts. The next day, April 20th, the picket line holds firm, taunting the replacements. The troopers move in, batons ready, and 9 strikers are arrested for disorderly conduct. And then 200 of those strikers march to the county jail, belting out, "We shall not be moved," like it's a hymn. The cops, they're not here to negotiate. On April 21st, the crackdown intensifies. Murray is back open. Transformer is fixed. The industry is pumping out bikes and lawn equipment once again. But the picketers and the troopers clash again. And it sounds like it was something straight out of a movie. I mean, it was full-on riots, fist fights, batons, the works. And 60 more picketers are rounded up. But the cops didn't have a vehicle big enough to transport all of these arrestees. So some got tossed into a state highway dump truck like cargo, like a freaking dump truck, but for people. That's the level of disrespect we're talking here. The Teamsters are bleeding momentum though, but they're not broken. Murray's plant is limping along, churning out bikes under the siege, and local papers paint the strikers as troublemakers. But the union calls them heroes. Lawrenceburg's a town divided, neighbors against neighbors, paychecks against principles. May 12th, the strike's final gasp. 2 explosions rock right near the factory. Crude bombs, reporters said. And the New York Times, at the time, claims that they are tied to the conflict, but they couldn't really find anybody that did it. So there were no injuries, there were no arrests, but it was very symbolic. The symbolism was heavy. Scores of state troopers still guard the plant, though, a military operation to keep Murray's wheels turning. The Teamsters' dream of unionizing dies here, crushed by the courts, the cops, and corporate resolve. By late May, the strike collapses. Murray stays non-union all the way until 1991, when the UAW finally breaks through. But in '65, it's a knockout for Murray's management. So what's the fallout? Murray's factory keeps on humming, pumping out bikes like the Wildcat and BMX rigs that'll define generations. The strike's a blip in their rise to millions of sales, but it's a scar on Lawrenceburg. Workers go back, the Teamsters limp away, their reputation bruised, and Murray, they learned a lesson. Control the labor, keep costs low. It's a strategy that will carry them into the 80s when cheap bikes flood Walmart, and the 90s when Chinese imports bury them. By 2000, Murray's just a nameplate. They ended up getting sold to Pacific Cycles, who, if you guys know the full story, are now owned by Pawn Holdings, so this is just another brand under the Pawn umbrella. And in the end, Murray did win the battle, but they lost the war to global markets. Today, vintage Murrays, those space liners, those pacemakers, they're worth a little bit of money, but the Lawrenceburg factory's a ghost, and the strike's a footnote in a forgotten fight. So that is the quick and dirty of the Murray, we'll call it strike/riot/military operation of 1965. There is so much more to this story that it's really hard to find information about this, just some newspaper articles from the time. If I find out more, I'll do an update video because I really want to dive into what was going on with the Teamsters versus Murray. Because when you really start researching the history, like I said earlier, I don't think that the Teamsters were just there trying to advocate for better working conditions and better wages. I'm sure people there were protesting for that. I'm sure some people had good intentions with it, but man, they literally had a sniper shooting at the building and then a literal dump truck full of people that they carted off to jail. A dump truck. That's insane. Footnote, though, a certain Fred D. Thompson, yes, the future senator and law and order tough guy was clocking in as a young worker during this time. But if you liked this one, please like, subscribe, hit the bell notification, share the video. That always helps. And go subscribe to those other 2 channels that I mentioned earlier. Thank you guys so much for all the support. I love you all, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.